All right. Hey, John, thanks for taking a few minutes today to take a look at branch furniture. Based on our past experience working with some other kind of home office furnishing companies, I think we have a lot of insight into this industry already, and so I thought it might be helpful for us to share some of what we've already learned, but also what we're observing on Branch's site organically, because I think this is going to be one of the first times either of us has visited this site. Heard about him on Dylan Kelly's Wave Break podcast, so shout out Dylan. Thanks for being the inspiration for the conversation today. So I'll get the website fired up, but how are things on your end, John? Anything you're looking forward to seeing out of Branch today?
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to see this space has just blown up over the past year at the pandemic, as you can imagine, right? Everybody's wants a stand-up desk at home. Everybody wants to upgrade that home office, and it's been a really good experience to see that. Excited to see where Branch is headed with this too. And they
Yeah,
have a
for
lot
sure.
more products too. When I initially checked out their site after you mentioned them, I was surprised to see that they have quite a bit of furniture on there. Where most brands are just focused on a desk and a chair, things of that sort. These folks are all in.
Yeah, yeah. And for some more context, I think they started off selling into corporate accounts, furnishing physical offices, and obviously the world changed and they had to adapt with it. And so I think maybe e-commerce or at least direct to consumer kind of purchasing is relatively new to them. So yeah, since we've been in that space for a while, maybe we'll have something insightful to share that they can take action on today. So as I
Right.
look at the homepage as it currently loaded up, we've got kind of a discount pop up, which I know we always have opinions on that. But I'm also seeing, every corner kind of has something for me to do, right? In the bottom left, I've got some kind of support widget here. On the bottom right, I've got live chat for sales support. Button in the top right to design my office. I've got a free shipping notification bar up top. Like, there's just a lot going on, and it's all fairly subtle because it's this kind of like, I don't know, the color of my monitor is a little weird, but it's kind of like this greenish black blend. It's all fairly subdued, which I think makes it feel cohesive, but also like I don't really know what I'm expected to do first here. Like the
Right.
pop up is obvious; it's got this gradient or whatever, but yeah, there's just a lot of stuff competing for attention. I think at first glance.
I agree with that, and I'm never a huge fan of discounting, and I think that it's even more of a challenge when they try to gamify it in this way. And there's a whole bunch of things that I'm not really a fan of here. Not showing the code. If you are going to have a discount, just have the discount and show them what they're going to get. Otherwise, you're not really incentivizing them. You're making it a game here. People are going to fill this out with a bogus email address just to see and get a code, thinking they're going to get it right away. I, again, I think that there's no good way to close this. They also have decline exclusive discount down in the bottom. So, a lot of this just immediately feels off brand for a high end furniture company, right? It
Right.
feels like something that you would not expect to see on a high end company. And so I would ditch this and let's bake that form to get, if people do want to sign up for the emails, into the rest of the site content further down the page, especially in things like the footer, where if
Yeah.
they really want to do it, they'll look for it. But if you close out of this, the other thing that really kind of concerned me was when you get here, the first thing you see in the top left hand corner is 4 teams. And now, if you're selling to an individual who's coming to do a home office, and I see for teams, I immediately think I'm in the wrong place. And so I'm not sure why they put that in the top left corner like that. It seems very, very odd. And as a new to file customer coming here, I immediately think I'm in the wrong place and I just either bounce or I go back to my manager who sent me this and said, go pick something out. And I'm like, hey, you sent me the wrong site. You sent me the Teams one. I want the individual one. I just think it creates a lot more problems and creates a lot more questions than it solves.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. And even just, aligning it right with the rest of this kind of secondary navigation up here would be more intuitive, I would think, or like be less distracting to the
Mhm.
individual consumer. And, we have to preface all this by saying like we don't know what their traffic distribution is or their lead distribution is between enterprise, corporate purchases, and individual consumer. And, as things start
Mhm.
to open back up, vaccinations are rolling out, like maybe it will be more of a balanced approach and they'll go back to messaging toward kind of those purchasing agents or whatever who are representing bigger brands. But for now, yeah, it does seem like you would want to kind of deprioritize the team aspect and put it up here in the top right and just focus on the individual consumer layout here. One thing I'll say is this notification bar. I do like the timeliness of some of the copy up here, where it's like our work from home collection, save 20%, but also get free no contact delivery. That shows some kind of sensitivity to the current situation. Like we have your safety in mind, right? Like we'll bring it by, we'll drop it off right at your home or your apartment or your office, wherever you're at. And yeah, in a safe way to get you back to work with the equipment that's going to help you be more effective, right?
Yeah, and I like that they have the working from home, as you mentioned, up there. I would almost just say working from home, get free no contact delivery, because that's really all people are going to care about at this stage. When we've worked with other furniture brands, delivery cost is always the biggest objection. They're always saying, "Hey, I know this is heavy. I know it's awkward and large. If I'm getting a desk, all the equipment that goes with the stand-up desk, what do I need to do to get that to my house? And how am I going to make it affordable?" They're expecting that when they get to that checkout, there's going to be a large shipping fee there. And most people understand the price that's listed is not going to be the price that I'm going to pay because of that shipping and handling charge. So reducing and attacking that objection right up front is key. And so I wouldn't even mix in the 20% because, you could use that as an incentive later in the conversion funnel on the product detail page, have that listed, right, with the strike through price and all the other stuff. But here, I really wouldn't focus on that as much.
The other thing I'm noticing about that bar and some of the other things we've already covered is like this is the third mention of some kind of discounting. So the pop up had reveal, a mystery discount. This call to action bar has a 20% discount, and then I see get $20 here. There's just a lot of discount messaging, and like you said, for a premium brand, maybe that's too much, right? Like it does kind of start to make it feel less prestigious or reduce the perceived quality of the product and it being worth the dollar amount that's attached to it, which we haven't even seen a dollar amount yet, so we have no idea what that would be, but it's reasonable to assume that it's a significant investment. So and then just blending 20% with $20, and I don't know, it's a little confusing to me, and it feels like you could kind of simplify that by just offering one or two at most, right? What about the navigation area in general here? We've got kind of the primary navigation with what appear to be product categories, and then we've also got secondary, which is more of your resources, changing your currency, managing your account, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I'm a fan of their navigation for the most part. They've kept it simple. They tell you exactly what they sell. So when I come to branch, I know immediately they have office furniture, office chairs, desks, accessories, workplace, and bundles. The workplace is the only one that I'm a little thrown off by, but I get that it's okay now. Conference, benching, lounge, panels, great. Okay, that definitely makes sense. So I think they've done a good job with the navigation. I give this an A. I think that it clearly tells what products they sell. If I'm interested in a desk, I know exactly where to go. If I'm interested in a chair, I know exactly where to go. And then the sub navigation stuff like resources, et cetera, is kind of off to the side. If I'm looking for that, it's easy to find. As long as they have that stuff in the footer as well, because most people who want that don't see it in the main navigation. They're immediately going to scroll down to that footer. But otherwise, I love this. I also like the main call to action area. I think they've done a good job in that. And I think in terms of the shop now and then take our quiz, I think they have a clear call to action. I'm never a huge fan of shop now. It's a high intent call to action. I always want to see something lower intent to purchase up front here, something along the lines of a learn more, view a particular product line, wherever that takes you, like view desks or something of that sort. But all in all, I give this an A minus. I think that they've done a good job of making it clear what they sell, and the photography works too.
Yeah, totally agree. And I like how it shows the diversity of the product line. Like you've got a tall man and you've got a short woman, and it's working for both of them, presumably. They both look comfortable. So I like how it
Mhm.
emphasizes that. Really just want to echo the sentiment about kind of putting the resources tab up here. We see a lot of folks drop the blog in the main navigation or even our story or about us. And generally,
Yeah.
what our advice tends to be like, hey, you can tell your story through things like product descriptions, headlines, supporting text, even CTAs. You can layer in some of those cultural elements there. It doesn't necessarily need to take up a space in your primary navigation. So I think it's really smart of them to put up here. I'd be curious to see what the showroom's about, because if it's like a physical location, like that's maybe not as compelling. But if it's it's some kind of virtual showroom where you can kind of, move a desk around and get a 3D view of it. I don't know. I might say that's kind of cool, and that might be something worth emphasizing here in the primary navigation, or at least testing. But I do like the contextual nature of these sub navigations and how it's telling you, like, if you specifically want a standing desk, that's for you right here. If you want a 6-person
Mhm.
conference desk, that's right here. So I think they did a lot of really smart things here, and yeah, totally agree with your overall assessment. That, like, yeah, this would probably be kind of A minus territory. So great job to the
Mhm.
team at Branch. As we move down the page, we've got some social proof elements. Oh yeah, one other thing I wanted to check here: the Shop Now link is, yeah, literally just going to drop us on every single product they have. So
Mm.
I never really like to see that. I mean, maybe send them to specific, like your work from home collection or something like that, something a little more targeted. Although, this page structure doesn't necessarily bother me because it's broken out into categories. But a lot of times you'll just see 24 tiles all laid out in a row, and that's probably not the best use of primary CTA
Mhm.
like that. Um, so sorry, I'll get back to the homepage here. Focus on what we're focused on. The social proof element here. I recognize a lot of these brands, so I think that's pretty strong and is doing its job there. It doesn't
Mhm.
appear to link out to anything, which could be good or bad, right? Like, what's this
Mhm.
significance of having and more here? Just show me the more or something like that. And then, how do I, like, what kind of coverage did you get in Business Insider or Forbes? Was it an
Mhm.
article? Was it an interview with the founder? Maybe it makes sense to publish those somewhere on your site, like publish a copy of them or embed the video or something like that. Keep folks local, open it up in a new
Mhm.
tab, whatever. But just give a little more
Mhm.
context around here, because, like, there's not a whole lot to say this wasn't just fabricated, right? Or it wasn't like
Yeah.
an insignificant mention on USA Today or something that really wasn't, anything impactful.
Yeah, but if we did a click map, you'd see people clicking on those, trying to get deeper into that information. And more, I would replace with and 10,000 workspaces, however
Mhm.
many customers they have, and put that in there. How many desks have you sold? You're in that many workspaces. So just put, sold 20,000 desks or whatever the number is, right? And I think that will really kind of help be the social proof from a consumer standpoint. So people look at this, and then if some and more is so throwaway, it's a waste of space. I would just get rid of that and have that in the featured and center those, or change that text to be and in, featured in 10,000 workspaces, right? And that, I think, something that's an impressive number like that will go a long way.
Yeah, or even just link it to a page that shows every PR media mention you've had, right? Something, just
Mm.
view all of them, right? Maybe would be more compelling than just basic text that says and more. So as
Right.
we scroll down, we're looking at some more contextual use cases here, which I personally love. They're kind of straddling this space between, do you build your home office because you're in
Mhm.
quarantine or you're stuck at home or your office is shut down for now, you're working remotely, but also for the folks who are, opening back up or thinking about coming back to the office, they're ready for those potential customers as well. So what do you think about this layout? It's pretty simple, but I think it's appropriately placed on the page, and I think it's helpful for the right consumers.
I agree with that. I think it's really good to the headline is great. I think it's great to help segment that audience down so you can start personalizing that experience. And that's really all you're looking to do. The homepage's goal is not to sell. The homepage's goal is to get the person to the next step in the conversion funnel, and that's exactly what's happening here with this lockup. You're helping people understand, I want to go to the home products or the team products, and knowing the shift that they've had to make, I think this fits really, really well. It's a smart move.
Awesome. Moving on down, it looks like they're going to get into some of those categories. So these align nicely with some of the categories we see in the primary navigation up here. And I think the supporting imagery is really strong. It makes sense. I know exactly what I'm getting into here. So what's a little bit interesting is, I guess they're calling these collections. So office chair
Mhm.
collections or desk collections. I guess that makes sense. But then in that notification bar we saw at the top of the page, there was the work from home collection. So I think of collections more like the contextual use case versus like the actual product type, which I would call more of a category, but that's probably
Mhm.
semantics at this point.
Yeah, it is a little confusing. I would almost get rid of shop collections, and I would make those see all actual buttons
Mhm.
and have that there instead. And instead of see all, I would just do, view products, something like that. See all is fine, but it's just not as common. from what consumers are used to. So I would get rid of shop collections. I don't think it's necessary, but I would make those see alls each a button underneath there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so then going down, this is where we're going to get into a little bit more of that maybe mission, that cultural element, what makes you different. I think this is a fairly simplistic way to represent that, but I think it does the job at first glance. Um, Interesting that they kind of call out the team offices explicitly. So it's like, okay, these on the left here apply to all customers, but specifically for team offices and large orders, we'll install it, we'll assemble these things, we'll do it on your timeline, and we can go up or down as your team grows. So I think that's
Mhm.
kind of clever. I like that. I'd be wondering like, hey, can I get them to assemble my personal purchase? You know what I mean? But I like this section. I think again, it flows in a logical way for me from top to bottom so far.
Yeah, look, they're setting the right expectations here. If they're not going to offer white glove and building the furniture for everybody's home, then I think they've done the right thing of calling that out here. So I bet you before they didn't have that white box with the header, and that might have been one of the changes they've added. But they did a good job here. So I don't know
Yeah,
how this is much different than anyone else, though. Quite honestly, but maybe it resonates with consumers. But I'd want to run some testing on this to understand what do consumers think when they see this, right? Because I really don't believe that this is that much different as a consumer. And knowing the industry, I also know it's not that much different. So,
yeah. What I do like about it is it seems to kind of stand up and knock down most of the common objections I would expect to see. Like, is this chair comfortable? You know, am I
mm,
overpaying or is it it's pricey for me? What am I going to pay in shipping? Like you said, it's heavy, so that tends to be expensive. Like, am I going to have to put it together myself? Can I get it before my new team member joins us? All this stuff. I do like how they're kind of like trying to project out or proactively address the objections that most customers would have
mhm.
right here before they've even kind of added stuff to their carts. They're like, okay, I can put my mind at ease for all those concerns that I have because, you know, they're going to take care of me and the outcome seems like something I'd be interested in.
Yep, agreed.
Cool. So I've been getting retargeting ads from them because I was checked out their site and then I go over to Instagram or whatever, and this exact video has been in the ads. So I know they're repurposing that content, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a
I
good
don't know. How do you
idea.
feel about video here? This about midway down the homepage here.
Well, I think that consumers would rather watch than read, and we've proven that through lots and lots of testing. And I think they do a good job here of showing throughout different portions of the day, right? He sits down, he's reading his newspaper first thing in the morning, drinking his coffee, kind of getting that stretch on, right? And then he goes and he hops on a Zoom call, and next thing you know, then it's evening, and he's changing throughout the day. And so I love the video as is. I don't know that I mean, I would wonder what the full video does, but I bet you that most people sit here and watch this video if we were to look at eye tracking, but very, very few people click on that play button.
Yeah. That would make sense to me, and it looks like it's gonna link out to YouTube, so I bet there's a voiceover and, you know,
Mhm.
a little bit more story about the brand. What I do like about this is it shows all those different use cases and contexts that you mentioned earlier, but also they've clearly clipped it to kind of condense the entire video into maybe 20 seconds or something. So at a
Mm.
glance, you do kind of get that full video view without asking somebody to leave your site to watch the longer 2 or 3 minute one, right? Because if you played this at normal speed and played the full length of the video, you may never see the night portion. You may never see the desk go up and down because you're already scrolling down to the next thing. So I do like that they
Yep.
clipped it up and made it really short and convenient to consume the whole thing because I think that context is important for seeing all the variability and the diversity in the use cases. So good job
Agreed.
there. All right. And then this is kind of where they're getting into that direct to consumer messaging, right? Where it's like, hey, you work through a dealer, you work through some kind of like corporate facilitator, you're going to pay all these extra fees, but we're about 50% less. So I think that's a strong statement, but I wonder if it's a little bit buried being all the way down here, you know?
I I don't think that consumers are as concerned with this as they're making a deal of it, quite honestly. But again, I think this is where user testing really comes in. If we're hearing this as an objection, I think the best way to describe this is to just list your prices, right? Instead of having that we're 50% less. Because I think people who are really comparing this against their competitors who we know well, those competitors aren't saying this story. They're just showing their reasonable prices. And consumers who are coming here looking for office furniture, what's their competitor? Are they comparing to like a Design Within Reach? Well, they're owned by Herman Miller, right? And Herman Miller now owns Knoll. And so it's like, and so I think that the chain there, it's like really they're all DTC at this point. And there's a few out there that aren't, granted. But I think that the play here for Branch on selling direct is probably not as much of a benefit as they're making it sound. And I don't think consumers are that concerned with it, quite honestly. But user testing and would go a long way in helping prove that out. And we should definitely listen to the consumers, as opposed to my informed thoughts on this.
For sure. Yeah, making some assumptions there, but I think they're grounded in real world experience and some good intuition. So might be worth testing because even just removing this section makes your homepage that much shorter and gets people closer to kind of this bestseller section or whatever else might be after this. So I think this is fairly standard. This is the first time I've seen an actual price for anything listed, and you're already seeing some strike through prices. So more discounting, kind of visual messaging, but also strictly saying like on the nose, hey, this is whatever. What is that going to be, like $50 less than it normally would be, and same thing over here. And so that's before the get to $20. That's before the 20% off work from home bundle. Like I'm guessing, or maybe that's automatically incorporating it. But it's just interesting to see that pretty much across the board. I don't know how many items we have here, like 7, and 4 of them are actively discounted right now. I'd like to see maybe a parentheses here and just like a summary of the total dollar savings or percent savings or something like that if you're going to have this, because I was sitting here trying to do the math and I'm like trying to quantify, how good of a deal is this right here? But you could just make that a little bit easier for the consumer by listing it explicitly.
Yeah, whenever you do discounts, you should always have 3 things, and it's the strike through price, do the math for the folks, and then what the sale price is, and designate that it's a discount or it's on sale. The best thing I like for these types of rectangle lockups like this is to put a little badge in the top right hand corner, and just put a little badge there that says 20% off or limited deal or something like that. Let consumers know. Those badges really draw attention and they perform quite well.
Gotcha. And then, of course, putting it in a carousel, usually we advocate against that, right? Especially if you only have 2 additional items to move to the right here. Like, can we just do this a 3x3 or something like that and make it, all fit on one page, especially on mobile? You wouldn't want to have to interact with something with small buttons like this.
Yeah, this is really comes down to the fact that in-page navigations, whether it be accordion navigations or of information or carousels like this, they very rarely get interacted with. Consumers just keep scrolling; they don't stop to actually interact with it. So I think again, I'd want to do click tracking here. Understand how many people are clicking on this. Is it getting engaged? And if not, just focus on your top 4 products and move on.
Got it. All right, so then we're getting down into a little bit more social proof. That they reintroduced the brand logos, and I'm going to wonder what that little hanging circle is right there. I'll click on it in a second, but it looks like we've got some customer, and these are all appear to be more corporate focused, right? Operations leader, CEO, solutions engineer might be like a frontline worker, but still, this is focusing on a job title versus like, this is my work from home office, right? And I'm trying to furnish this, and I'm just James Sauer sitting here in Cleveland, Ohio, that bought something. So I like bringing this in near the bottom of the page. We're almost down to the footer. So it's that kind of last stitch. Like if you're on the fence, here's some real people with names and faces who love us. I like that. It does seem like it's more focused on the enterprise side when they're more focused on the direct to consumer side now. So maybe that's something worth testing, is like more of these corporate titles versus more of a individual consumer kind of focus. And yeah, bring in these. I wonder why they chose these logos. It looks like I'll be able to navigate through them. And so the dot indicates which one's active, which is interesting. But again, I wonder if anybody's even, scrolling through these like I am now, or if they are just kind of looking at the first one. And then my first assumption was, okay, here's a quote that somebody said about them. And these are just logos pulled from higher up the page where they've been promoted or given a positive review elsewhere. I didn't even originally think to navigate this as a carousel until I looked a little closer while talking out loud here.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly what the consumer experience is. So, I would suggest either just having one of these, which the reality too is all these quotes are just a tad too long. I think, or bolding what the main thing is, right? Um, and I think that was something that should really, really be thought of here because people aren't going to read all of this. That's just a lot of information in a small confined space. I do think that this is probably left over from pre-pandemic, if you will, meaning that that quote from TechCrunch looks like it is not based on that last line of that quote that may never work from an office 5 days again.
Hmm.
But I do think that they're really banking on the fact that the bulk of their revenue and relationships is going to come from these mass orders and they're going to ramp back up at some point, and that's why this is here, and that's fair. I think that you don't want to alienate that audience that you know so well and knows you so well. So this is still a kind of an olive branch to that CEO operations audience.
Yeah, that makes sense. I like your idea about bolding the most important point. And what I was thinking there is like maybe even swap out this headline. So like take this, put it, center it up at the very top like a section header, but have this be the most important, not a direct quote, but the sentiment
Mhm.
of the quote below, right? Like, so this is like why it's great for teams who are now in a distributed work setting, right? Versus fully on premise. And then whatever the relevance of this one is, but like swap out this heading and just have it be kind of the punchline for each of these. So that if I only read one thing and it's 5 words or less, like I get the meaning of what's below here. I think that could be
Mhm.
really cool to test out.
Great.
Okay, and then this looks like one of your standard. I'm guessing. Well, I thought this was going to be an Instagram, shoppable kind of call out here or a feed, but it doesn't look like these are anything more than just a ribbon of images showing more of the product, the packaging, happy customers, that kind of thing. Interesting
Mhm.
choice this far down the page, but I don't necessarily think it's hurting them, right? It's just showing more of the product imagery before you get into this final Hail Mary CTA, which is like let's go shop all of our collections and find something good.
Yep, I think that's great. It's good to show in use. Right now, on the rest of the page, there hasn't been much in use besides that video, so that's great. Let's take a look at the footer. I'm wondering. Okay, so a couple of things here. One, I would move the logo and address lockup to the far right. That's where people, if they want to get a hold of a brand, they scroll and they look all the way down to the far right. That's why you always see chat widgets in that right hand corner, right? But also there, I would just list the contact information. They have the address, which is really helpful. That increases trust dramatically. But I would also just put the support email address and maybe phone number if there is one there. They have a contact page and that whole support lockup and column. I don't think that that's necessarily an issue, but I would put that right next to it. So if I were to redo this navigation in the footer, I would put the far left column with the logo and all that information on the far right, and then on the far left, I would put shop, explore. Then I would have the email in the middle, and then support. So it would go shop, explore, email, sign up, support, then the logo.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, the email sign up is about as weak as you can be, unfortunately. I mean, news offers and more like that's not super compelling. So,
yeah.
yeah, if you don't have a better offer than that, like why bother putting it down here? I doubt anybody's actually filling this out compared to the overall traffic. So maybe it's better to just simplify or come up with something a little bit more compelling, like I don't know, even work from home productivity tips or something like that. So whatever you're
Mhm.
doing, just be realistic about it. But yeah, this isn't a super compelling offer to get access to my inbox, basically. The other thing that jumped
Yeah.
out at me is this free space plan, and I think that's kind of a cool offer, especially on the corporate side. But like, if it's a significant part of their lead generation process, then feels a little buried here in the footer. I wonder if that's something where if we determine that this section we talked about up above about pricing maybe not being as much of a differentiator, like can you promote the free space plan here? Now that would definitely be a decision to focus more on the enterprise side than the individual consumer. But if we come back to the workforce or whatever, and that becomes more of a priority, maybe that's something to consider.
I was looking at that too. It says design my office in the top right. I noticed how that navigation changed as you scroll down. It does become sticky, but it does change as well. That I almost wonder instead of design my office if they put free space plan there.
Hmm.
And I would run, and if they haven't already, maybe they have, but I would run some testing on those too, and maybe even a few other copy changes there. I do think that design my office is great, but am I designing my office? I'm not an expert at that. It's not as enticing as free space plan. Free space plan tells me you're going to do it for me and I'm going to get a plan coming out of this. Design my office is just like, I can design my own office. Okay, cool. I'm going to look at the products though first. And then you just ignore it and don't come back to it. Free space plan is super actionable. It is much more about I know what I'm getting, I know the cost, and a plan is really actionable, right? Where design is not as actionable.
Yeah, it does look like they're two different destinations. This one looks like it's going to a quiz, and then the free space plan is a dedicated page. So I'm
Mhm.
guessing design my office is more for the home office and like what's your space look like? What do you need? A desk, a chair, accessories, whatever. Or let's put together a bundle, go ahead and buy it. Whereas like the free space plan is very much like let us help you design your office for your entire workforce. So yeah, definitely worth a test to put it that up in the top right corner there and give it a little bit more priority. One thing I'm noticing here is I see reviews in the footer is I didn't see any mention of reviews, or at least that didn't jump out at me in areas like this, right? Where like how many positive reviews, how many stars, whatever. I wonder if that's a missed opportunity, at least for testing, to get somebody to go through and click on one of these, especially individual products like this. Maybe not so much the categories, but yeah, those individual products feel like they could maybe benefit from a star rating or a total number of reviews or something like that.
That's fair. I do think that at some point here with these items, it's all about getting people that next step and not necessarily having them choose the individual products yet.
Hmm.
So I think these bestseller lockups I'm never a huge fan of, but I agree. If you're going to do it, you should have as much information as comfortable there. And I don't know that reviews is really what people are looking for at this step. That's something that I would want to see on that PDP as the next step going further. But I agree with you. I do think that having user reviews, if they do have a lot and they are that great, to tout them. Otherwise, if you're not, 4.5 or 5 stars, I would just leave them off of here at
Yeah.
this point.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I think that's going to about cover the homepage. I know we covered a lot today, a lot of suggestions, a lot of constructive feedback, but overall, I mean, their website's beautiful. I think they're doing a lot of things right. I don't know what I would give it as a grade. Like, I think we gave the hero section around an A minus, and like overall, I don't know. This site feels pretty good to me. I know I don't have the level of expertise that you do, but I'd grade it about the same. That A minus or A range is doing a pretty good job,
Mhm.
and hopefully we can take some of these suggestions today and then implement them and make some of those micro improvements that really make a big impact, you know?
Yeah. So I think there's some small things to test here that could take it to the next level for sure.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time today, John. We'll get this over to the branch team and hopefully it'll be helpful for them. But I appreciate you taking time out of your day to share your expertise with us. And we'll look forward to doing another one soon.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, James.